Today's episode is brought to you by Audible.com, where you can get a free trial and a free audiobook at audibletrial.com/I don't even own a television. You should check it out.
1, 2, 3.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all, 'cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Podcast. I'm your host, J.W. Friedman, and with me today is Eugene Violet. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing great, and we are here today to discuss a graphic novel for the first time ever. Woo! And I'm already bracing myself for the wave of harsh criticism that'll come in. But it's my show, and I do what I want, so deal. We're talking about a graphic novel written by Nicolas Cage and his son Weston Cage, entitled Voodoo Child. So Eugene, you brought this to me. I had never heard of it before, and it's pretty incredibly bad. How did you discover this?
Well, actually, I was walking through an abandoned graveyard in New Orleans, and I saw a very small coffin. And the coffin opened itself, and out jumped this frightening trade paperback.
Yeah.
And no, I mean it was literally like $2 in a bucket at a comic book store that was closing down. And they yeah, I mean I probably could have just walked out with it. They wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, it's I should mention it's optimistically entitled Voodoo Child Volume 1, which I'm not expecting to see any more entries in the series.
You never know. They're
Yeah.
making a new Fantastic Four movie, so anything can happen.
That's true. And also Nick Cage is going to be in a new Left Behind movie, so there's some congruence
Wait,
there.
like the Christian...
Yeah, there's a trailer for it out now.
Oh my god.
It's great. But anyway, so before we talk about this anymore, I think we should kind of sum up what it's what it's about in quotation marks. So if you are ready, we're going to do plot in 60 seconds, and you will have 60 seconds to summarize the goings-on in this book, Mr. Violet.
Gosh.
Are you prepared?
No, but let's go.
All right, 3, 2, 1...
Okay, Gabriel Moore is the illegitimate son of, like, basically Oscar Schindler set in the Deep South, and when his dad gets capped by awful racists, his life is preserved somehow in some voodoo ceremony, and he is brought back to life in 2006 post-Katrina New Orleans and charged with a mission to set things right. There's a bunch of girls missing, and wackiness ensues. There's a detective who looks just like Nicolas Cage, and there's a lot of shadowy fights where you can't tell who's getting punched, and that's basically it.
Oh, awesome. Good job. I believe you are the second person out of 6 to finish before a minute is up, but this book does kind of facilitate that. I'm going to use the term book throughout this because I don't want to keep saying graphic novel, and I don't know. It's not a comic.
It's a trade paperback, but use the terminology you find appropriate.
Okay, it's the TPB, Voodoo Child. The narrative is brilliantly obtuse. At the same time that this stuff is going on with the kidnapped girls, there's also a subplot that has to do with corporate corruption and misuse of Katrina relief funds. And the whole book revolves pretty heavily around Katrina, but kind of seems really stupid about it. Yeah. There's, a lot of scenes that take place in FEMA trailer camps and stuff. It's but it's very loose changey.
It's tokenly about like Katrina, but in the most just like tacked on way. It's superficial. It's like you can tell that it's not really based in that reality at all. It's just like they just mention it to color the story, but there's nothing smacks of authenticity about how that's used.
No, it's a function of the setting, and that like you could tell they had written it about New Orleans, and then one of them was like, "Oh, Katrina." So yeah, it's an added layer of bullshit on top of other bullshit. But yeah, before we get too into the narrative here, I had a lot of things to say about the art style of this book. As you mentioned, there's a lot of fight scenes that are so dark you can't tell who's punching who. And most of the characters look like someone asked Todd McFarlane to draw a muscle man covered with snakes. So I'm especially fond of the Gabriel Moore character in his shadow form because he looks really slimy.
He looks like, he looks like he's just gotten out of a very naughty film shoot. It's
yeah, or rolled around in barbecue sauce.
Yep, it's a Sweet Baby Ray's is a co-sponsor of this this Virgin Comics flagship masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I had a really hard time following this because the artist is good, and I'm not sure how much of it is actual direction from the creators, the Cajun son. But most of the characters look the same. Everyone kind of has the same nose and eyes, except for the characters that are actually evil, because their eyes look slightly meaner. And I don't know. It's hard to tell with such a completely obtuse narrative. There's not even really anything visual to help you keep track of what's going on.
Yep, it's got a lot of problems. Do you think maybe we should start off just by describing what the main character, like the titular Voodoo Child, looks like?
Yeah, that's a good idea. What does he look like?
So I wrote down some sketches here just to give people an idea. So first off, I think we should start out that he definitely looks like pretty much every kind of caricature of voodoo, like as imagined in the 1950s by, scared housewives and stuff. Like his hair looks like Medusa meets Jack Skellington. It's like it's like tiny snakes, but they're like they move on their own accord, and when he shadows up, gets into his shadow form, it gets even more menacing. He definitely does resemble Spawn, like the way that the shadows kind of envelop him. But he also, at some points when he's like in his full-on Voodoo Child mode, he really resembles kind of like the Predator alien.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, but mixed with Sandman. I don't know if people are familiar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with Neil Gaiman's Sandman, but he definitely has that vibe, and it's just impossible. Like this character, I don't know if it was like the artist wasn't sure what it was supposed to look like, but in the story, he is constantly changing his face. He's constantly morphing, and but he's never one fixed thing. Like he's almost unrecognizable a lot of the time.
It's true, and the villains in this look very similar as well. And there are definitely times when you're not sure who's talking.
Yeah, I mean, basically the villains are just like Italian stereotype number 1, scary Jamaican dude number 2. Like they're just the most generic, and then when you get to the women, they literally do all look the same, whether they're 10 years old or 30, and they just look the same. They have the same faces, and the only way you can tell, and I noticed this on rereading the book, is eye color. So he makes their eyes different colors, and that's how you're supposed to tell these.
I'll have you know one of them wears glasses.
Oh. Yeah, but when they're getting sexy, I think she takes them off.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, and they do. The main character...
not Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, the not Nicolas Cage detective that looks just like Nicolas Cage. He's a cop, and he works with 2 other lady cops that, they're drawn identically, and it makes it very confusing.
And is he constantly flirting with both of them? Yes. There's a weird love triangle that is never ever explored. It just is implied that he's sleeping with both these women.
And they're both like cool with it. They just tease him about it.
Yeah, they're a little catty with each other. At one point, they call each other, and you can tell that there's a little tension. But he's so charismatic and sexy.
And he talks in like slang straight out of like a 1920s like hard-boiled detective book. He calls people like chump and stuff.
You chump?
I was going to mention also earlier when you were talking about the dark shadow form is that he also encounters some other voodoo creature type things, and they look almost exactly like him. So
that was an interesting battle in hell, which is extremely dark, I guess, despite all the fire. I don't know. It's a very grim hell, and Baron Samedi, or I don't know how to say that.
Old Skullface.
Old Skullface.
That's this guy's evil because he's got a skull for a face.
Yep. He really, he's got basically a gang of zombies that back him up. and we learn that Gabriel's weakness is touching the soil.
Yes, he can't touch the dirt with his hands or he goes to hell.
Which may be accurate, like from a voodoo lore perspective, but like it makes you extremely weak in streets that are covered in dirt because they've just been flooded. There's literally like pieces of like the Gulf and the Delta like that have moved onto the street. So this guy, he must be like, skipping very carefully over the street to avoid this. Oh, and also Mr. Messenger, who is the kind of harried, weakened old man who out of desperation brings Gabriel back from the dead to ostensibly to bring back our girls.
Spoiler.
Oh, yeah.
He's actually evil.
Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger, okay?
Yeah.
But actually do, because then this graphic novel would be over in 1 minute.
That's true.
And that would have been a lot easier for both of us. So Mr. Messenger neglects to tell him any of his weaknesses. After he brings him back and sends him out on a mission, he's like, oh, by the way, try to avoid stepping on soil, and just in case, don't go out when it's sunny. Oh, well, okay. I mean, thanks for telling me at this point.
In one of the first action scenes of the book, he's pretty much incapacitated by a fat businessman who turns on the light switch. For a character that's supposed to be Ghost Rider-esque in that he's a good guy that strikes fear in people's hearts and stuff. He's not very frightening at all. He's just kind of ugly drawn. Ugly? He's drawn in a very ugly way.
Yeah, he's ugly. And he turns into a little boy, but even when people are being attacked by him in his shadow form, he is still referred to as a little boy. So he's like small and extremely ugly with the face of like a mummified corpse, and snake hair. His dreads just expand. I mean, there's no consistency to it, but there's no explanation. So in one scene, he will have dreads that are hanging, the boughs of a willow tree all the way down to his knees, and then the next scene, his eyes are no longer glowing, but he's got the corpse paint on. I mean, there's just no consistency.
Yeah, there isn't, and I think it's not until volume 5 or 6 that they show him in his fully human form, and it took me about 4 panels to realize it was supposed to be the same character because he looks about 8 years old.
Honestly, I thought it was one of the missing girls.
Yeah, me too.
They do talk to a couple of young kids at the FEMA camps, and I just thought like one of them was like they were trying to ascertain. I mean, to his credit, Gabriel is very pretty, but it would be good to like introduce. Oh, you have a human form. Oh, you have a shadow form.
Yeah.
There's a difference. This is the same character. There's some continuity, but no, it's just like I'm gonna draw everybody looking the same and make it really dark so you can't tell who they are.
Yeah, I think that was an attempt at some narrative sophistication that the art really couldn't pull off. Like maybe he was like, I'm going to, by he I mean Nicolas Cage or Weston Cage, of course, was like, oh, I'm gonna make this crazy secret, but and you'd have to puzzle it out for yourself and gradually over the course of the series realize what his weaknesses and strengths were. But yeah, the art doesn't support that at all because it just makes it even more confusing. One of the characters that I really liked a lot is what was his Samedi, Baron Samedi or something. Mm-hmm. The devil. He has a wife who's a giant lady in a thong. Yeah. And you're first introduced to her with an entire panel of her butt.
Yep.
It's pretty classy stuff.
That's not the only time that happens, too.
Oh, you're right. It happens with a couple humans as well, doesn't it?
There's one woman who this kind of low-level villain guy, Mr. Bridge, Donnie Bridge. He gets really mad when you call him Donnie. It's like, your surname is way more incriminating than your first name, Donnie. Ease up on that. But basically, there's a character that he refers to as Cupcake, and she's only shown in one panel, and it's just her ass. Like, the whole panel is just her butt and some dialogue over it. And that's kind of how this book treats women, I think, in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of graphic novels, especially the superhero variety, aren't really known for their sophistication when it comes to this stuff, but this is just an extra level of stupid. Like, I mean, you mentioned earlier the really incongruous love triangle that revolves around not Nick Cage. And yeah, most of the women in this book spend, I'd say, about 90% of their time being attacked by or arguing over men. It's pretty Substandard. It's Frank Miller-esque in a lot of ways. See, guys, I read comics sometimes.
But that's one of the least offensive things about this book, which I think is kind of an accomplishment to like make me forget how silly it is when it comes to women. I mean, it treats race in an even more clumsy way.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we're going to get into this more in detail later, but if you have a main character that's bilingual, you don't need to make him say the same thing in both languages every time.
It gets pretty cluttered.
Yeah. Okay, so it's probably time for us to take a break, and then we're going to come back and kind of dig more into the narrative of this wonderful piece of literature written by none other than Nick Cage. I still can't believe I'm reading something written by Nick Cage that's not like a memoir or something. Oh, man, I think maybe he thinks it is, though. But yeah, we'll be right back, so please stay tuned.
Doing that stuff that you do, messing me up with your voodoo. You drive me crazy with that boogie, oogie, 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 oogie. You drive me crazy with that boogie, boogie.
All right, welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. With me today is Eugene Violet.
Hello.
And we are discussing Voodoo Child, Volume 1, by Nick Cage and Weston Cage, who has been in 2 black metal bands. So
He's a scary-looking dude.
yeah, there's a lot of pictures of him and Nick at various events, and he wears corpse paint to them when he's not performing.
As you do.
Yeah, he's fucking dark cult.
I wonder who the real Voodoo Child is.
It's probably Weston. Yeah, so basically, we've kind of gone in depth about the art here. We should probably move on to the narrative a little bit. I know we've been touching on it.
And what a narrative.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Basically, as we mentioned before, the plot revolves around both a government conspiracy, or I guess a business conspiracy, to misuse Katrina funds and kidnapped girls from FEMA trailer camps. And the glue that kind of ties it together is this detective who is very obviously Nicolas Cage. Like, he's drawn in a way where he looks exactly like Nicolas Cage.
He may have hair plugs. It's weirdly long in the back. They didn't even try to conceal what they were going for. It's just like, put me in there. I'm Detective Julian Land. Yeah,
Julian Land, too. Everybody in this book has really awesome, like, stereotypical Cajun kind of names, too. It's great. Like, oh man, I can't remember any of the names, but they're all Saint something, and you know.
Yeah. Well, the main quote unquote villain is Bussard, you know.
Yeah.
And the other guy's Saint. I can't even remember his name. It's
yeah.
like Saint Rue de Morgue or something like, and it's like ridiculously over the top. Saint Rue Croix or something. It's like he threw every like French Creole word he could into a blender.
Yeah, it's pretty obnoxious, and it also once again contributes to the confusion because you know there's a lot of characters with kind of names that don't make sense and are easy to get mixed up. As you were talking about earlier, I think the Katrina stuff is particularly interesting to me because it does feel so tacked on, and it feels like a really cheap attempt to be socially relevant in a ridiculous book about a guy with snake hair. Yeah, so one of the things I noticed right away is that almost every character in this can be summed up by how they feel about the Katrina destruction, and everyone has to tell you about it a lot. Like whether they're gangsters or evil corporations or the detective, you know, there's always some, well, you know, Katrina type stuff going on, and it just feels really shoehorned in and cheap.
It is, and it's like super inappropriate too, because they're talking about a case of abducted girls, then they start talking about how bummed they are that Mardi Gras got canceled, and not Nicolas Cage turns to one of his girlfriends and says, Negan's gonna back down, he wants to live to be reelected. And she says, yeah? What do you want, Julian? He said, Michael Brown's head on a pole.
Yeah, I saw that. And yeah, reading that now, too, especially, is pretty fucking awkward.
Yeah, it's
yeah, but...
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, no, I know. But, yeah, it's... Yeah.
It's like basically, if you read the preamble to it, where Nicolas Cage and Weston Cage write to us about why this book is so important and groundbreaking, he makes it very clear it's like a love letter to New Orleans, blah, blah, blah. And but really what he thinks of as a love letter is saying like, these officials are terrible, you know, like the people who did this are bad, you know. But it's like he has the characters say it at really inappropriate times, and it's so topical and it's so set in 2005 that, you know, Michael Brown is forgotten largely.
Yeah,
by
nobody
2014.
nobody remembers that except for like the people who, you know, are still complaining about Kanye West and, you know, and his George Bush comments. It also just not only feels really inappropriate, it feels incredibly just, even at the time it came out, you would be reading this and be like, why?
Why?
You know, it's a big why, because it's not necessary for any part of the story. And as far as like, you know, kind of setting the stage, it's just really ham-fisted. I think that there's an attempt at political commentary happening, but it doesn't come off that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of, he's trying to walk this line between having, you know, supernatural villains and then having real life villains too, but it's almost like two completely different stories. The missing girls end up being very supernatural in nature, and then at the very end they kind of tie everything together that it was this big conspiracy and yada yada, but like up until that point it's like reading two comics at once, and neither of them are very good.
Nope, both boring comics.
Yeah, exactly.
Together it's just a muddled mess of boring.
Which it should also be mentioned that by the time you're in like volume 3, about half of every comic is fighting, and it's still boring.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's indistinguishable. So one guy's power is that he's shrouded in shadow, and he can kind of manipulate the shadows. But the problem is that when he's attacking something, they get shrouded in shadow too.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what's going on. So there's no shadow vision. There's no sepia. It's basically just like large swaths of the panels are black, and a lot of it is hinted at, but it doesn't really work. I mean, it just like I've read a lot of bad graphic novels in my day, comic books, and this one, like, it excels. It really takes it to the next level of just kind of like murky, unnecessarily grim and grimy art. And I don't want to blame the artist. I think that this is a definite, like, this is an aesthetic decision made by Nicolas, and probably Weston had a lot of it's like, no, Dad, darker, come on, man. It's for Satan, man, come on.
Make it look more like an album cover.
Yeah.
Because that's, a lot of this feels like a kind of a local metal band's album cover, but with a higher production standard.
It's got some metal moments in it. I just want to talk about one really that kind of sets the scene when a seagull, a giant seagull apparently, gets stuck in a sewage culvert during this mob meeting, and so they take this kind of like schlubby functionary guy, Donnie Bridge, over to look at the seagull as it's getting mauled by dozens of rats. And I mean, that's the kind of like the detail that these authors think colors their story. They think it's necessary and like makes it like hardcore and edgy, but really it's absurd. And I was laughing out loud. And we'll get to it later, but there are some of these knee slappers in here, but totally for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything's very edgy in like a video game kind of way too, where the way you indicate edge is by having characters say fuck all the time and like, like, oh, fuck this shit and stuff. There's a lot of just kind of random profanity, and then also like some of the most amazingly inept hard-boiled dialogue I've ever read, like ever. This is my personal favorite, is when our hero Julian whatever the fuck I'm edgy too, when he shows up at a villain's place and tries to get into it to rescue these girls, and one of the thugs outside says, "You ain't got a warrant, you ain't got probable cause, and you can kiss my ass. The only way you're getting in here is if you're delivering us a fucking pizza." To which the detective replies, "Deep dish, you sack of shit, or thin and crispy?" while he's hitting him across the head with his gun.
That is hardcore.
It is, for sure. Like, I read that and I was like, ooh, this character is multifaceted and deep.
Yep, but kind of like a deep dish pizza.
Yeah. He's not afraid to take it to the streets and use some slangs.
He can get a little crusty at times, but, he's nourishing in the end.
And incredibly witty when he's talking to women, for sure.
Oh.
He describes one woman to the other as saying, she has a great mind. And she says, a great mind? And he says, yes, it's supple and warm, or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, they do come back to the sexual, and there's some panels where the women they're wearing they're wearing button-down shirts in a lab or something, and then by the end of the scene they'll get up and you'll see that their shirt is like a little crop top. It's like a little half shirt. So they get up, they're at the lab, with like beakers and stuff that could spill on you, but no, just wear a little crop top white shirt, and then it's entertaining. It's really entertaining.
It's also I found it a little unfortunate too that he makes all of his women obviously drawn from the same How to Draw Comics book, because like you had mentioned earlier, the girls who have been kidnapped, which you later find out they've been kidnapped as part of a secret ritual, that if they're sacrificed, this evil man will live an extra 10 years for each one of them that he kills.
Good deal.
Yeah. Especially because he seems so happy. I'm sure, like, he really wanted to stick around.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all drawn with the same face as like our femme fatales and our hero's love interest. So it's kind of weird. He's rescuing these kidnapped teenagers, and they're standing next to his partner, and they have the same exact face. It's creepy.
It is creepy. I think that he just doesn't know how to draw women, so he just kind of traced the same one over and over again, made them a little smaller, changed the eye color, voila. You have a new character.
When I was a kid, I used to check a book out from the library a lot called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and I feel like a lot of the art from this was it was very influenced by. And once again, I'm not super familiar with the artist. He may be a great comic artist and just phoning it in for this, and I wouldn't blame him. But yeah, it's pretty bad. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we got into earlier, which is kind of the racial characterization throughout this book. And don't worry, I'm not just going to get all aggro like I usually do when I talk about this stuff, because in this case, it's mostly funny instead of offensive, because it's so inept.
It's trying to be noble. It's trying to discuss race issues in a serious way and kind of reflect the diversity of New Orleans and, what the implications of like the legacy of slavery, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't do it. I mean, everything falls apart, and it's just the discussions of race when it tries to get serious are just laughable. It's really not well done.
It definitely feels like, an actor writing a book about a serious topic. There's just a lot of goofy shit. The Mason Moore character, Gabriel's father, looks a lot like, like a founding father type guy. And there's a part where he takes his son to the public square to watch people being whipped so that he can learn what they're fighting against and things like that. And it's really uncomfortable. Gabriel himself is mixed race. He's the child of Mason and a black woman, but it doesn't really play into the plot in any way, shape, or form. But yet, in the preamble to the book, it keeps talking about how important it was to have a mixed race hero in comics. But yeah, it has nothing to do with the story at all. And once again, just like you were saying, it feels like an attempt at something good that just kind of falls flat on its face.
Yeah, and it just kind of turns derisive when he takes the kid into a schoolyard and they're discussing skin color, and some of the darker skinned kids are saying like, your skin color looks like dog vomit, Gabriel turns to us, turns the camera and says like, well, will I get darker if my white daddy is farther away? It's just like, there's just some real weird head scratchers. Like, I think your intentions may have been good to discuss race in an honest way, but like, it's just shoehorned in and it makes no sense. Yeah,
it feels really, stupid. I think really that's ultimately this book is best described as stupid. And I mean that in kind of a nice way, because sometimes it's very endearingly stupid. But it's really clumsy. Its handling of language is really interesting too, because so many of the characters are speaking a Creole, but the reader isn't really trusted to be able to figure out what they're saying from contextual clues. So there'll be a lot of English sentences with one bolded French word in the middle of them, or a lot of cases where something will be said in Creole and then immediately the same character will say the same thing but in English.
But yeah, there's no consistencies to it. So, at one point, Voodoo Child invades the dream of Saint, one of the, underbosses. And St. Clair, I think is his name. And
Yes.
he gets in the dream, and, St. Clair is commanding an army of chained up crocodiles. And,
Of course.
But like, they start hurling around epithets like Getty and Skelerat and Karenkro and all these things. And there's just no, it's like, it's not necessary. It's totally, at this point in the book, you've been hammered over the head with these things. They're in the dream state. There doesn't even really need to be dialogue at all, and it's like the rules of this realm are completely incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's like there's no like next level. There's no like getting into the real storytelling. It's all just like, oh, we got to throw in a Cajun word here. We have to throw in a voodoo reference here. It's like, it just seems like paint by numbers at this point.
Yeah, the climactic battle in the book actually ends with people shooting up a voodoo doll that kills the bad guy. And that comes completely out of nowhere. It's not mentioned at any point throughout the story up until then. It's not like you're seeing them collect the stuff to make this voodoo doll or any sort of foreshadowing whatsoever. It's just all of a sudden, Voodoo Child has a voodoo doll that kills the guy.
I think he does steal it from Saint, but it's never referred to as a voodoo doll. It's referred to as Heart's Blood, which is great if you like know what that means. But if you don't know what that means, then you just see this voodoo doll at the end that gets shot, and Messenger dies. And it's like I had to read this twice to just like figure out what the basic gist of it was, and it was rough. Like, it was rough trying to. I mean, I can imagine the difficulty that it must have been writing it, because like it's such a muddle to try to get through it as a reader. So I feel like at the end they're like, you know what, fuck it. Instead of a sensical climax, let's just throw the voodoo doll in there and have somebody shoot it and then just be done with it, because there was no way to really wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you're kind of onto something here, too, that I was kicking around in the back of my mind that I hadn't really been able to put words to. But I think one of the big problems with this comic or graphic novel is that there's too many ideas and not enough story. And it just seems like kind of all of these random ideas and factoids about New Orleans and things like that are just kind of rattling around in this empty husk of a narrative. And it gets confusing because, the story is almost just used as like a through line for these sort of scenes that it's not really integral to the book at all. Like you said, half of it doesn't need dialogue, but it's there. So, I don't know.
And it's poured on thick.
Yeah, very, very thick. So, just like Sweet Baby Ray's.
Yep, all over Voodoo Child's dreads.
Yeah.
Slimy dreads.
Yeah, everyone in this is really shiny too. I didn't mention that earlier, but everyone's really shiny.
It's the humidity, man. They're all sweating. It's New Orleans.
The women in the book look like their faces are like made of plastic. It's really, really pretty awesome, actually. So we're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the history of Virgin Comics, which is pretty interesting stuff, and do a little game. So I will talk to you soon. Hey everybody, are you looking for books you don't have to read? Well, why not visit audible.com, home to over 30,000 audiobooks that you can listen to on any digital device of your choosing. They've got a lot of great stuff, and right now you can get a free trial at audibletrial.com/I-don't-even-own-a-television. This also includes a free audiobook download that's yours to keep forever and ever and ever. So, check it out, help me out, fill your mind with goodness. Thanks. All right, welcome back to the snake-covered world of I Don't Even Own a Television. With me still is Eugene Violet.
Hello.
Hey, and we're talking about Voodoo Child, Volume 1. So I know that you've done some research about the history of the company that published this graphic novel, trade paperback. They're called Virgin Comics, which is an oxymoron.
Hey, you took that from a Wikipedia editor.
Yeah, I did. I'm stealing jokes from Wikipedia.
From some anonymous guy who edited it to be a jerk.
Now I can work at BuzzFeed.
Hey, all right, next Benny, baby.
Topical. Okay, so
we're gonna age as well as this Voodoo Child.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so why don't you kind of get into this, because I admit ignorance when it comes to the history of Virgin Comics. So.
Well, I mean, it's kind of as batshit as you'd expect from a company that would publish a kind of, vanity project from Nicolas Cage and his corpse paint clad son. It's actually founded by Deepak Chopra's son.
Oh, okay. See, I was under the impression that this was like kind of a vanity publisher as well, that I only existed to put this comic out. But that was just what I had guessed.
Yeah, I mean, it might as well have been. I don't know. It still exists in some form today in Asia as Liquid Comics. Gautam Chopra, who's Deepak Chopra's son, started it, and Richard Branson came in at a certain point to try to kind of like get this company to break through in the West. 2 years later, it was restructured and that dream died. But they had a lot of like huge plans, and they had actually some decent creative people lined up, but it never really came to fruition. That was kind of like a downtime for comics too. The whole thing is kind of puzzling, why Branson was interested and what market they thought they'd have in the United States for these comics. It was kind of already saturated, with DC Vertigo and Image and Marvel. I mean, it's just like they didn't really have that many interesting properties, and the whole core of their catalog was all these Indian and East Asian books, and so it kind of like projects like Voodoo Child just really came out of nowhere and just didn't have the quality, and I'm sure Deepak Chopra was crushed by that.
Yeah. So it seems like in a way, this comic is kind of a collaboration between two dads who want their kids to do cool stuff.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, throwing it in as much as they could. If only Richard Branson's son had gotten involved. I don't even know if he has a son.
I don't know
he
either.
He may be a virgin. He may never have had sex. I mean, that could be.
That's actually why Virgin Records was named Virgin Records. This is true. He was like 13 years old when he founded it or something like that. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And he was a virgin.
Yeah, it was actually intentionally named that. I just learned that about a year ago. So.
Everything about that company is really off-putting.
Yeah, I agree.
Virgin Space.
Yeah, I know. Virgin Space. It's not just for Comic-Con anymore. Man. Oh. Okay.
Zing!
Sorry. But
Best zinger ever.
I've got to say, I am surprised to learn that this was published by a company that had published other things before of any sort. I really figured this was just Nick Cage throwing his money around. I'm curious about whether this came out before or after Bad Lieutenant Porter Call New Orleans.
Before, yeah.
Okay. Because I kind of thought that was the kickstart of Nicolas Cage's Louisiana obsession, and that was around the same time he bought what he called the most haunted mansion in New Orleans.
So. One more ghoul.
Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of like a really watered down version of Alice Cooper in a lot of ways, and Alice Cooper now hosts celebrity golf tournaments, so yeah.
That's your future, Nick.
Yeah. This is kind of awesome too, because I feel like every podcast has to have an episode where they talk about Nicolas Cage, and I was wondering how I was ever going to do it, so I got really excited when I found out that he had written a graphic novel. So, awesome. I'm in the big leagues now. I guess let's do some games. Dramatic readings. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. We have the preamble, huh?
Oh, we do.
Okay, well, it's time for...
Juicy.
Dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
In dramatic readings, we read from the book and make it sound way cooler than it is. I'm not doing one this time because in this book, there are not many snippets of dialogue that are longer than one or two sentences at a time. However, the preamble is amazing, and Eugene is going to read it for us.
When we first began brainstorming Voodoo Child, we racked our brains for a unique, powerful superhero that still meant something to us. But it's sometimes hard to find relevance in superheroes of today, in all their capes and tights glory, in our own worlds. Configuring a new, modern superhero, as fun as it is, can find you in fantastical territory and have the exact same result. A character that doesn't align with readers and the challenges they face in the course of their daily lives. Never is this more apparent than when a catastrophe hits and creates such devastation that affects so many people. Such was the case with Hurricane Katrina and the people of New Orleans. That city has served as our home for many, many years. So upon much reflection, and in an effort to ground our narrative and make our superhero relevant to modern times, New Orleans became the backdrop for our story, almost a character unto itself.
Oh, God. Never heard that one before.
When Katrina hit and tensions festered following the city's devastation, it became a canvas for rich storytelling, a bastion of those preying upon the chaos that loomed, in a place where ordinary heroes emerged because of the extraordinary acts of compassion that they undertook. The more we considered it, the more we knew that the heart and soul of our story could only be found in New Orleans. And to that notion of having an adolescent of mixed heritage, our story's hero, Gabriel, who is an amalgamation and culmination of so many different tensions and historic forces. A writer like Mike Carey, who is such a master of the comic medium, and a breakthrough artist like Dean Hirapit, and his rich, exciting style, and it all started to become a very compelling project that moved with great velocity. Now that our story is envisioned, we invite you to enter into its pages. Prepare yourself for an adventure that shall place your mind in a dimension deep within the imagination and take you long into the world of New Orleans, where spirits and voodoo magic lace everyday existence. Venture with Gabriel in his quest to discover the shadows of his past as he enchants and entertains you while battling the evil that plagues this historic city. And may the people of New Orleans find hope with this new hero in this new world as he emerges as an icon to those who believe in the magic within. Signed, sincerely, Weston Cage and Nicolas Cage.
You can not blame them. I mean, you could blame them for a lot of things, but they were definitely incredibly optimistic about this project.
The hero for New Orleans.
I like the fact that about half of that description has nothing to do with the actual story. Like where he's talking about, we were sick of superheroes with their cape-filled worlds and wanted to do stuff that people could relate to the problems in their everyday lives. You know, like when weird snake monsters kidnap your children and take them to satanic rituals.
Yes, and harpies with large boobs swoop down and try to steal your voodoo child.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that there's a comic addressing, you know, such real-world issues. Thanks, guys. I also just realized from listening to that Nick and Weston didn't write this. Like, it took two of them just to come up with the idea. Like, I thought for sure that they were the writers because their names are so huge on the front.
Well, Mike Carey probably came in and said, this is a huge mess. Let me just erase, 15 references to pregnant seagulls getting torn apart, and we can go forward. I mean, what could he do with this? Like,
it's true. He's like a punch-up guy that gets called in to write jokes for like a Chipmunks movie or something. There's like only so much you can do.
Yeah, because some of this dialogue you can tell is straight from Nicolas Cage. It sounds like the stuff that he ad-libs on his latest, like witch hunting movie.
Deep dish a sack of shit, or thin and crispy.
I actually think that was in which movie? That probably is from Port of Call, New Orleans.
Yeah,
sounds like it. He's like, that's a good line. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, definitely. Werner Herzog obviously not involved in this book.
Just source material, just inspiration.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of scenes of alligators in it, and yeah.
We see here a man opposed to nature.
He is a voodoo child.
He cannot touch the soil.
Yeah, so okay, let's move on here and do a little game. We're going to do What is your fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
So in What is your fave, it's exactly what it sounds like. Hey, so, Eugene, what is your favorite evil character in this book?
My favorite evil character in this book, I mean, aside from the harpy lady with her glorious purple boobs,
fully exposed
exposed purple boobs, would have to be Baron Samedi, who has like he's wearing a skull stretched over his skull, so you can see like his lips in there, but he's wearing like the skull. I think he's like an archetypal voodoo character. He's like the angel of death or the devil, but he is certainly kind of dressed like a subterranean pimp. But instead of a bevy of prostitutes, he's got a bunch of rotting zombies at his beck and call.
Yeah, he's good. My favorite were, well, this is kind of cheating, but they operate as one unit, were the 3 evil crows that were like zombie crow hybrids, and you couldn't really tell if they were supposed to be people with crow masks or like weird mutated half people, half crows.
They changed. They were human, I think, and then they changed into these like crow monsters.
Yeah, and obviously this is, made very clear by both the art and the
Not
storytelling.
at all.
Because between the two of us, we've read this book 4 times, and we apparently still can't figure out.
I think if we read it a 5th time, we'll just like completely lose the thread. We'll be like, I don't know what's going on. I think it's about Ray Nagin and Michael Brown and FEMA. I'm not really sure.
And barbecue sauce.
The Sweet Baby Ray's.
So, okay, and then, just since this is a graphic novel and we don't talk about graphic novels that often, did you have a particular favorite panel?
There are so many. I mean, the seagull panel was fantastic, where you get to see this very large seagull being assaulted by rats. I would definitely check out that panel. We should post that online.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's like, it's really hard to choose. I guess the giant lady, the giant Baron Samedi's wife.
God damn.
I'm sorry. Was that yours?
Yeah, but I have others.
Okay. I mean, like, she is just, let's face it. She's a looker. She's got runes on her face. Her boobs are the size of geodesic domes. She is, I mean, she's a goddess, right? And she really helps Gabriel through in the end. So I would have to say, the scene, if I'm remembering correctly, where she's got Gabriel in her palm and is holding him up to her face and talking to him, that's probably the best panel.
Oh, okay. So we did have different ones, because I think the best panel is definitely the first time you see her, where you just see her giant butt in a G-string and her hand holding Voodoo Child by the hair, and then a dialogue bubble.
She's handsy.
Yeah.
She can't get enough of this Voodoo Child, and I think that's what turns her in the end to help him out against Baron Samedi.
Yeah, she likes little dudes. Like, really little dudes by her standards. Yeah, so that was definitely my favorite panel. And I think it's time to move on. So let's do a What Would They Do?
Sometimes the tensions are hard to divine, and others the clear as day. So tell me, what would they do?
All right, so this is just one. This book is just filled with crazy flights of fancy. It's hard to think of anything that wasn't already addressed. But what instrument do you think Voodoo Child would play in a Zydeco band?
Ooh, that is okay. I'm gonna go on a limb here. I'm gonna say he'd be tooting on the horn. He'd be a trumpet guy.
That's good. I was thinking the washboard, because he could use all of his snake-like hair appendages to really keep the rhythm going.
Ooh, okay.
I have heard like one Zydeco song though, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was by Buckwheat Zydeco, which I think is probably the only Zydeco band that anybody knows about. So yay. I know it has accordion though. He probably wouldn't play accordion.
Now, who would play accordion? Ooh, probably the lab assistants. They'd squeeze it between their thighs as Detective Julian Land looked on from the shadows, smoking a cigarette.
That's really true.
Not Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, not Nicolas Cage. And originally I had written a second question for this that was, who do you think Nick Cage relates to most in the story? But that's softball stuff by now, because I think we pretty much nailed that down. It's the guy who looks exactly like Nicolas Cage and talks exactly like Nicolas Cage. Which makes me wonder if there is a Weston Cage stand-in. I'm pretty unfamiliar with his personality in the real world and stuff, but at least one of these characters has to be Weston, right?
I think he envisions himself as Gabriel. I think he does see himself as the Voodoo Child.
So he sees himself as a shiny version of Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah, basically. I'm gonna go my way.
It's like somebody was like, "Hey, can you draw Carnage dressed as Lenny Kravitz?"
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Carnage is Lenny Kravitz. He does have Venom moments in this where his like the shadow becomes like a symbiote, and like, you can tear it off him if you use the right frequency or whatever. Well, I guess that's the light. Yeah, but it's
it's the light, but it's the same thing basically. And just going back to that preamble earlier too, the fact that he says, comic books are hard to relate to because they're filled with these cape worlds and stuff like this. I mean, half of the art in this looks like it was lifted directly out of like a Spider-Man comic.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's even got the blood scene when he's being brought back to life from Messenger. When Messenger brings him back to life, like it's from I forget that guy's name, Bokor. It's a guy who originally like prevents him from dying.
Oh yeah.
Who's also dressed like a subterranean pimp. And yeah, because what they think to make like a voodoo guy, just give him a bunch of necklaces and a top hat and like a sick like velvet cape. But anyway, like there's like this, it's almost like from the Matrix. It's like this blood vision, like it just zooms through the blood and it has a really weird Creole dialogue overlaid on it. And he wakes up and he's in 2005 and he's really pissed at Michael Brown and Ray Nagin.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I think we pretty much run the gamut of things that we can say about this book that has about 300 sentences in it, but a lot of awful pictures. So I guess let's see here. Would you recommend this book to anybody? Ironically, seriously, not at all, both?
I would say no. Don't waste your time and just watch Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans instead.
Yeah, it's a good movie. We're going to post a couple panels anyway.
Seagull.
So yeah, you'll be able to see all the good stuff. And by that, I mean 3 panels on the website. So I agree. Don't waste your time. It's hard to get through. And it made my brain hurt, and not because it was a challenging narrative, just because it's, so obtuse, so hard to follow.
So unnecessary.
So cagey.
Cagey?
Yeah.
Cagey Cajun.
All right, so actually, before we go, I want to introduce a new thing that I'm going to be doing, because I feel bad only contributing vitriol and sarcasm to the world. So I'm curious if you could recommend to our listeners something similar to this in a similar genre that is actually worth reading.
Well, actually, that's pretty cool. There's a lot of good stuff out there right now. I read a lot of comics and graphic novels, and once I got my own place without like roommates and stuff, where I had a couple closets, I started reading them more. But yeah, if we're going to talk about, shadowy heroes who like to wisecrack and regenerate, the new run of Deadpool, written by Brian Posehn, the stand-up comic, and Jerry Duggan, it's exceptional. I really recommend that. And I mean, there's a bunch more that I really enjoy. The Brian K. Vaughan saga is just...
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. But similar to this, I think it's not out right now, but Rick Remender's run on Venom, if you like symbiotes, if you like the way that someone's power kind of like can be dispelled, and like how their powers like work on their body and those issues, then I think that Rick Remender's run on Venom was excellent. But yeah, that's all I got for now.
Cool. For me, I think I'm going to suggest Lock and Key. There's a lot of volumes of it. It's written by Stephen King's son.
Famous son.
Yeah, there's a through line here. But it's really cool kind of horror storytelling. The art is pretty unique for comics. I like it a lot. And, it comes out in self-contained series where you can get them as they go along, or there's a trade paperback for each series, and they all kind of work on their own. So there's a lot of stuff to read. I feel like it has a similar kind of vibe in that there's a lot of kind of straight up, dark horror type stuff. But, it's a much different narrative. I think it's a lot more relatable, and it's fun. It's fun to read. So that's my recommendation. And with that, I think we're going to call it a day. So thank you very much, Eugene.
Thanks a lot.
Cool, and thank you for listening. If you'd like to get a hold of me, do so at idon'tevenowntelevision@gmail.com, or the website idon'tevenowntelevision.com, where you can find links to all of our exciting social media presences. Actually, I forgot, before we go, is there any way people can get a hold of you or keep up to date with your goings-on?
LeDuc Violet on Twitter, LeDucViolet. A little bit of Cajun Creole for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here, and thanks everyone for listening, and I will see you next time on I Don't Even Own a Podcast.